For years, I grew ginger the way most people do. I stuck a piece of rhizome in a pot, kept it watered, and hoped for the best. And every year, I pulled up these sad, undersized knobs that barely filled my palm. Then I started digging into the research, looking at how ginger actually grows in its native tropical habitat, and I realized I had been getting almost everything wrong, not the big, obvious things, the subtle ones. Once I made 5 specific changes to my process, my harvest tripled. I weighed it, 3 times the yield from the same number of rhizomes. In this video, I am going to walk you through all 5 of those secrets and explain the science behind why each one works. Stick around for the bonus tip at the end because it is a storage trick that keeps homegrown ginger fresh for months longer than you would expect. Ginger is one of those crops that seems simple on the surface, but rewards you enormously when you understand its biology. It is a tropical plant, native to Southeast Asia, and it evolved in warm, humid, shaded understory conditions. That single fact explains almost every mistake I was making. Let us get into the first one. The first one I want to talk about is pre-sprouting your rhizomes in a warm, humid environment before planting, and there's a fascinating reason why this matters so much. Most people take a piece of ginger from the store or a seed catalogue and plant it straight into soil. The problem is that ginger is extremely slow to break dormancy in cool or even mild conditions. The rhizome just sits there doing nothing for weeks, sometimes rotting before it ever sends out a shoot. What I do now is place my rhizome pieces on a tray of damp sphagnum moss inside a clear plastic bin with the lid cracked, then set the whole thing on a heat mat at about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Within 10 to 14 days, you will see bright green buds swelling at the eyes and small white roots beginning to push out. By the time those pieces go into soil, they are already actively growing, which eliminates that risky dormant period entirely. This single change cut 4 to 6 weeks off my growing timeline. Next up is soil temperature management, and this one really surprised me when I finally measured it. Ginger needs consistent soil temperatures above 70 degrees Fahrenheit to grow actively, and it really takes off above 75. For most of us outside USDA zones 9 through 12, that means our outdoor soil is too cold for ginger during a significant portion of the growing season. I switched to growing ginger in large black fabric pots, at least 15 gallons, which absorb solar heat and warm the root zone faster than in ground beds or lighter coloured containers. I also mulch with dark compost on the surface. The combination keeps soil temperatures 5 to 8 degrees warmer than my in-ground beds. That consistent warmth translates directly into faster rhizome expansion because the enzymes responsible for cell division in ginger function optimally in that 75 to 85 degree range. Number 3 on our list is feeding with a high potassium fertilizer during the bulking phase, and here is why it deserves attention. For the first 2 to 3 months, ginger puts its energy into leaf and root growth, and a balanced fertilizer works fine during that stage. But once the plant is established and the rhizomes start expanding, usually around month 4, switching to a high potassium feed makes an enormous difference. Potassium drives the transport of sugars from the leaves down into the rhizomes, which is literally what makes them swell and bulk up. I use a liquid fertilizer with a ratio that emphasizes potassium, something like a 4-2-6 blend, applied every 2 weeks during the bulking phase. The year I started doing this, my individual rhizome pieces nearly doubled in size compared to the previous season. If you are finding this helpful, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I put out new videos every week breaking down the science behind growing better food at home. It is free, and it means you will not miss the next one. All right, let us keep going. The 4th pick is aggressive shade management during peak summer, and let me tell you why I think this one is overlooked. Remember, ginger evolved on the forest floor. It does not want full, blazing sun. When I was growing ginger in an exposed spot, getting 8+ hours of direct sunlight, the leaves would scorch at the tips, the plant would stress, and growth would stall during the hottest weeks of July and August. Now I position my ginger pots where they get morning sun and afternoon shade, roughly 4 to 5 hours of direct light total. The difference was immediate. The foliage stayed lush and deep green. The stalks grew taller, and most importantly, the the plant kept actively pushing out new rhizome growth through the heat instead of going into a defensive stall. If you cannot move your containers, a simple shade cloth rated at about 40% provides the same effect. The fifth one I want to talk about is harvesting timing based on leaf dieback rather than calendar dates, and there is a practical reason why this matters. Most guides say to harvest ginger at 8 to 10 months. That is a rough guideline at best. What actually signals that the rhizomes are fully mature is when the leaves begin to yellow and the stalks start drying back naturally. This means the plant has finished translocating all of its stored energy from the foliage down into the rhizomes. Harvesting before this happens means you are pulling up ginger that has not reached its full size or flavour potential. I used to get impatient and dig early. The year I forced myself to wait until at least 70% of the foliage had yellowed, my harvest jumped dramatically. The rhizomes were plumper, the skin was tighter, and the flavour had that sharp, warming heat that store-bought ginger rarely delivers. Now, this is something I stumbled onto about 3 years ago, and it completely changed how I store my harvest. After digging up the rhizomes, I let them air dry in a shaded spot for 2 to 3 days until the skin feels papery and firm. Then I wrap each piece loosely in a dry paper towel, place them in a sealed container, and store them in the crisper drawer of my refrigerator. The paper towel wicks away excess moisture that would cause mold, while the sealed container prevents the rhizomes from drying out. Stored this way, my homegrown ginger stays firm and usable for 3 to 4 months, compared to 2 to 3 weeks unwrapped. A simple change, but it means I'm still using my own ginger well into winter. That is everything I have for you today. Gardening is one of those things where the more you learn, the more you realize there is to discover. If you found this helpful, hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next one. Happy gardening, and I will see you in the next video.